Okay, let's make a start. So first of all, thank you all for joining us today, this afternoon. Appreciate everyone's got busy calendars and there's lots going on at the moment. Busy period for most people. So thank you for giving up your time to join us. Hopefully it's well worth it. This is our second happy hour virtual event as Threat Protect, and this one's all about email protection, spoofing prevention, and anti-phishing. We are joined by our strategic partner Redshift. So we've got Harry and Neil on the call with us today, as well as Glyn from our side. He's one of our account managers here at Threat Protect. So a quick agenda for today. We're going to go through a quick bit of housekeeping just to make sure it all runs smoothly. I'll do some introductions to people who we have on the call. I'll do a very quick bit about us at Threat Protect for those who don't know. I know we have people that we've spoken to previously. For those who don't know, we'll just explain who we are at Threat Protect, why we're doing this sort of event today, and what we sort of offer. We'll then pass over to Harry at Redshift, who's going to talk about Dmarc and go into the details of sort of spoofing prevention, anti-phishing, and how Redshift can kind of help with that with their technology. We'll then be doing a live demonstration and a live spoofing of how that actually works in real life, and you can see that for real. There'll then be opportunity for a quick wrap up Q&A opportunity before we will be joined by our award-winning mixologist Terence, who will be joining live from South Africa shortly, who'll be running us through a cocktail masterclass for those who have hopefully received your cocktail kits all safely in the post, and you have all your ice and chopping boards and stuff at the ready. We'll be doing that probably around 4:45 by the time we get to that stage. So a very quick bit of housekeeping. I think you'll be muted during the presentations just for sense, so it's all runs smoothly. There is a feature to ask questions in the Q&A box, which you should see on the left-hand side. There's also a raise your hand feature, and I believe this is a new feature for this platform, but you can react with emojis if you feel that that's appropriate. So during the cocktail making, we're hopefully going to make it a bit more engaging. Share your thoughts on do you like it, do you not like it? There, you can see a thumbs up there. Fantastic. Yeah, like I said, use the Q&A feature. Feel free to drop any sort of questions. If, you should be able to do that anonymously if you feel that you need to do that. That's absolutely fine, and we'll get to those either at the end, or if they are pressing questions, we'll try and get to those as soon as possible. We have also got a poll running on the left-hand side as well. There's a couple of questions just to get your thoughts. Any answers to these are appreciated. There's a couple that relate to the technologies that we're talking about today. There's also one just to get your feelings on. Obviously, this is a virtual event. We're looking at the idea of doing some in-person events as things sort of open up and COVID restrictions ease up a little bit. Hopefully, that's a continuation that we see as we transition out of the pandemic that we've obviously all been struggling with over the last 18 months. So we're trying to get your thoughts and feelings on, are you open to joining us for physical events? I mean, we're looking at that as a potential opportunity to transition away from these virtual events and meeting you guys face to face, really. But we're not going to do that unless you guys feel comfortable. Just trying to get your guys' thoughts and feelings on that. It is being recorded, so if you have to drop off any time, appreciate everyone's busy. I said at the start, really appreciate your time this afternoon. If you do have to drop off, it is being recorded, so if you need to go away, we will share the recording of the session, and you can get back to it at any time. So a few quick introductions of who we've got on the call today. You've got myself, Johnny, from the marketing team here at Threat Protect. As I said at the start, we've got Glyn, who's one of the account managers. He's now got slightly longer hair than is shown in that photo. And then from the Redshift side, we've got Harry, who's the UK channel manager, and Neil, who's the channel director for EMEA. So very quick bit about us at Threat Protect for those who don't know. Security is at the heart of everything we do. That's why we partner with people like Redshift, who offer security solutions. We have a real focus on people, process, and technology. Taking our time to get to know the people we work with. You guys get to know us before suggesting looking at the processes and the technology that we can offer. And through that, we take a really consultative approach. We've got in-house consultative team who are on hand to help with any sort of questions and any answers that you're looking for, and take a real tailored approach in terms of getting to know your business before providing a single trusted source of vendor agnostic IT security services. So we are vendor agnostic, but we do partner with people like Redshift when we feel like there's a real need for the technology. So things like Dmarc, email prevention, and spoofing is a real focus at the moment, which is why we're here today, really. So we've got security services. We also offer compliance and advisory. Can offer cloud security through AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud platforms as well. And we also can offer hardware and software. But enough about us. Let's get to the main event why we're all here today. So I'm probably going to hand over to Harry at Redshift, who I believe you're going to share some slides. He's going to take us through email protection, domain spoofing, and anti-phishing. So Harry, if you'd like to share your slides, if you can.
Awesome. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a background around Dmarc. Before we do that, so obviously Redshift as a company, we've been around for about 6, almost 7 years now. Our main kind of solution that we've pushed to our customers has been our Dmarc implementation service called Dmarc. In terms of a company, I'd sort of say we're email security specialists, particularly in that domain security space. So we also have a solution that's called OnDomain, which goes out and scans the internet, see if there's any similar lookalike website domains to yours. Dmarc will go through exactly what that does in terms of protecting your own domain. And then finally, we'll also have a little look during our live spoof on our inbound on inbox solution, which adds nice kind of threat detection, traffic light symbols into your employees' emails to show if those emails are safe to interact with. The main focus today, though, is all going to be around Dmarc and exact domain email impersonation attacks and how we block those. So a little bit of background around Dmarc. So the protocol itself was first introduced back in about 2012 by some of the big email providers like Google and Microsoft. And the main reason they set the protocol up at that time was there was actually no way of preventing exact domain impersonation, which seems a bit crazy. Some of these massive companies like themselves wouldn't have been able to stop their exact domains being spoofed, spoofing mails being sent to their customers, companies within their supply chains. All those emails could be sent directly back into their own organization. So that is the whole kind of key reason why Dmarc exists. So we'll have a little look now around how it works. So Dmarc, it's an email security protocol that companies implement into their DNS records. So it's just a simple TXT record, which takes about 5 minutes to set one up and then drop into your DNS. And we can show you later actually how to do that. As soon as you put a Dmarc record in place, you configure it in what's called P=none report mode, which we'll look at in more detail. And the first benefit you get from that is visibility. You start getting an idea of all the different services that could be sending on behalf of your domain. Of those services, you can see whether or not they're correctly set up with email security protocols like Spf and Dkim that we'll get onto in a minute. You might also uncover things like shadow IT and also any potential spoofing services that could be impersonating your domain. So that is the kind of first key benefit Dmarc gives you, is visibility. Now, why is Spf and Dkim related to all this? Because what you need to do is to make sure Spf and Dkim is correctly set up for each one of the legitimate services that you're using at your company. You might be using MailChimp for marketing campaigns, Office 365, Salesforce for sales. All the different sort of services need to be authorized with Spf and Dkim, so those legitimate emails can pass Dmarc validation. And then this means any unauthorized, illegitimate emails, whoever receives that email will be able to see that that hasn't been authorized by you, and therefore it fails Dmarc validation. So you're effectively splitting out your emails to be able to show receivers which ones are legitimate and which ones are a threat. And that's the whole sort of part that Redshift and our Dmarc platform helps with, is the configuring of Spf and Dkim for all of your legitimate services. Now, once we're confident we've got everything set up correctly, we can then help to change your Dmarc policy. So customers, as we said, they always start off in the report mode only. At this phase, none of your email traffic is affected, which we'll see with our live spoofing attack in a minute. And this is just the information gathering phase. Then once we're confident we've got everything set up, we can move you to quarantine mode. Once in quarantine mode, this means any of those failing emails, i.e. unauthorized ones that we looked at here, you're instructing the receiving service to push those emails into the recipient's spam folder. So it's kind of an in-between setting of protection at that stage. And the final goal that we want to get our customers to, and we tend to aim to get our customers to this P-reject status within about 10 weeks. So this is the end goal, P-reject. Once in this status, any of these failing emails that we saw here will become completely blocked on the recipient's end. And at that point, you've gained, full domain protection. No one outside of your network perimeter that you don't want sending from your domain can effectively spoof it anymore. This helps to actually improve your domain reputation. and your email authentication as well. So you actually get another benefit from this, which is improved email deliverability rates. So if we go back a step, if we're looking at the three key kind of benefits of Dmarc, you first of all get visibility of what's going on, and we can help our customers run through that phase. You then get protection once you move to quarantine, and then full protection and reject. And then finally, as a result of all that, your domain reputation improves and you get improved email deliverability. So that is the background of this. So what we're going to quickly run is a spoofing example. Now I'm going to use the analyzer tool here, which allows you to look at any company's domain. We can have a quick look at threat protects, and for the sake of this call, we actually moved their domain from reject back to p = none, which means they'll be getting reports but not actually blocking any potential spoofing services. So we now are going to look at our spoofing tool, which is something that someone internally set up in about sort of 5-10 minutes. And we're going to send it from Johnny's email address to mine at Redsif. And we've just done a sort of a typical phishing email here, and I'm going to hit submit. Now, the reason why in a minute we'll look at how this gets through is because they're in that none policy, so nothing's currently blocked. But when we move them back to reject, that service will actually fail Dmarc validation and become rejected on our end. So if we go to my inbox now, we have effectively now got two emails in here. The first one is exactly from Johnny's email address, and you can see this is how it appears. And this is our other service called OnInbox, which shows that this is recognized as a legitimate email because these are green. The only reason why C is amber in this status because the message is revolving around transacting money to a different account, which is kind of something we recommend people to have a little closer look at. But the piece that you all wanted to see here was this one. So this comes in, it appears to be exactly from Johnny. The email itself looks exactly the same to any untrained eye here. But in this case, we can see our OnInbox service picks it up as a spoofing mail and detects the end user here not to interact with it. But we've seen here how easy that spoofing attack was able to be carried out. And it's literally, if you don't have Dmarc in that policy of reject, these attacks could be happening all the time, targeted at your customers or other companies in your supply chain. So this gives you a nice kind of combination of one, how Dmarc would have, worked if you're in a policy of reject, because this email will fail SPF and Dkim and therefore become blocked, but also showcases you nicely how our OnInbox service works too. So now we're going to flip back to our Dmarc solution and actually show you a little bit how this works. So the main reason why Dmarc exists is to help our customers set up the Dmarc protocol to that policy of reject, which can be quite a tricky process. And a lot of customers that we work with really struggle to do this, and it can take them a very long time. The main reason for that is because without a service like ours, the normal Dmarc reports you get back are very clunky XML reports. They kind of look like lines and lines of code. We're taking those reports, and in a minute, we'll look at how we present them back to you. So this is how our platform you start off with it. And the first step any of our customers take is to add their domain into here. Once you do that and hit submit, we then publish an action for you to follow. And this first action is to configure this unique Dmarc record here into your DNS record that we mentioned earlier, so that those Dmarc reports start coming to our Dmarc solution here, which is simply just an email address, which would be unique to your account. And we do whatever we do on the back end to crunch those and make them easily presented back to you, which we'll have a look at now. So I've set this to a example demo account, and we've got 90 days worth of data on here. And we've got kind of 4 high-level reports, first of all, and then a nice in-depth senders report that we'll look at in a minute. So we'll whiz through these first ones. We've got a compliance report, which shows you the number of emails being sent on behalf of your domain a day, and how many of those are passing or failing Dmarc validation. When you're in that policy of P-none that we mentioned earlier, the red here shows you how many potential emails are failing Dmarc validation a day, i.e. no SPF or Dkim, but not yet being blocked. So that typically will be a combination of legitimate misconfigured services that we help you get set up, as well as potential spoofing services too. Once we're confident you're ready to move to quarantine, the yellow here shows you how many emails you're actually quarantining, i.e. going to the spam folder of the recipient at that time. So by this point, these will only be illegitimate services. And then finally, we've got the red kind of crisscross on the end here, shows once you're in a policy of reject, how many emails you're actively blocking per day which are illegitimate. So in a minute, when Threat Protect turn their domain back to reject, the next email will become blocked, and on their reports, they'll see a blocked email on this compliance report. Now, the next report to look at is receivers. This shows you what email receiving services your recipients are using. We give you a top 5 list here, and you can download the full list from this button. The next report is quite eye-opening. It's our locations report, as it shows you where around the world people are sending from your domain. And the red dots here are indicating Dmarc failures. So again, these could be, the sources of malicious threats, or they could be where legitimate misconfigured services are sending from. The interesting part with Dmarc is it's all public-facing information. So once you get to that reject policy, you tend to see the volume of red dots decrease over time. And that's because, spoofers and hackers, if they can see you're in a policy of reject, they're less likely to bother actually impersonating you. So these red dots, you might see them popping up in strange places during your reporting phase. And if we scroll down, we can actually start to see from this report the exact services that are sending from your domain. Now, this is demo data, so it might all look a little bit strange here, but if you can picture this in your own email environment, I'm sure most of you use services like either Office 365 or Google Workspace or MailChimp, and you can start to see how they appear in your senders report. You can see the number of emails being sent from them, also their reputational score, which means you might go, oh, here's a red one with a poor reputation score, i.e. it's a suspicious IP. And you can see it in this case, it could be getting sent from a Vietnamese spoofing service. You might also start uncovering what's called shadow IT, so services sending potentially high volumes of email that you weren't aware that you were using. Typical examples of this are sometimes marketing start using services, and then you can see from these reports you need to get them correctly configured. And how do you do that? You can move along this. So let's take MailChimp as an example. And you can see here that maybe a low percentage of emails are passing SPF and Dkim validation. So if we click into this MailChimp service here, this then gives you exact visibility on that service and how currently emails flowing out from it. And down the bottom here, you can start to uncover why potentially SPF and Dkim is failing Dmarc validation. And, why is this important? Because if we go back to what we spoke about earlier, you need these 2 protocols in place for each service you have to ensure that your legitimate emails pass Dmarc validation. So our support team spend a lot of time in here with our customers, helping them get this all set up to start moving, our customer base forwards to that reject policy safely. And that's a really big value add of using our on Dmarc service. So the next part to look at on the senders report is if you want to start marking which services are legitimate that you use, you can mark these boxes here. Once you mark them as an asset, they will be pushed into your email sources tab for that domain. And from here, this is where you would manage your legitimate services. So it's a really nice kind of hub, like a board to look at to ensure everything's running correctly for your Dmarc implementation. So if we take Google Workspace here as our example, these 4-part wheels show you in the top left and the top right whether or not SPF and Dkim have been correctly configured in your DNS. And underneath here show you whether or not traffic is actually passing to confirm they're correctly set up. So the simple idea here is you want to get these wheels fully green before moving forwards to a policy of reject to ensure that all of your legitimate mails continue to flow properly. We also auto-populate the correct includes here for things like SPF and Dkim. So this is a nice place to then store these correct records as opposed to constantly having to be jumping in and out of your DNS records. And we go one step further here. If we spot failing traffic for a legitimate service, we can actually give you an automated next step instruction. For a service like Google Workspace here, you can click on the setup instructions. It takes you to our knowledge base, which has around about kind of 600, 700 articles in here. And you can follow the instructions here if you want to. But you'll always know that we've actually got support engineers that walk our customers through the whole implementation process. That takes a lot of heavy lifting out of it, and it speeds up your process to get to reject. So for the sake of time, I'm going to whiz forwards to 1 or 2 last bits, actually, sorry. We've got, first of all, dynamic Dmarc. So what does this do? This is sort of some of our really nice unique features. The first one is our dynamic SPF tool. So some of you on the call might be having issues around SPF management and exceeding the SPF lookup limitation. What is this? So SPF works as a way of allowing you to white label whitelist what services you want to be able to send from your domain. And you do that by adding an include for them. So Mimecast will have an include, G Suite will have an include, each service you use will have a different include. But each one of those includes has what's called a number of lookups associated to it. So if you have too many lookups in your SPF record, this will cause your SPF record to break. There's a limitation of 10, by the way. And that means if you're using 4 or 5 different services, you can very quickly exceed that lookup limitation. Once you exceed that lookup limitation, it's more likely your legitimate emails start landing in spam folders. We've helped a lot of big customers like ITV, Telefonica, completely overcome this lookup limitation issue by using our smart include here that we provide to them. You copy and paste that into your existing SPF record. You can then manage everything underneath here from our solution. So any includes, A records, MX records, and IP ranges can all be managed off one pane of glass. And that means you no longer have to worry about your SPF lookup limitation, and you've simplified your SPF management going forwards. So that's a cool piece. It's definitely worth, chatting to the guys more about how that actually works. We could run an analysis check on your domain too to see where you're at with that. But let's move on to Dynamic Dmarc and Dkim. These are a little bit more simple. They essentially allow you to set up a name server in your DNS records that any Dmarc changes you want to make can be made from the platform here. So if you want to change from, Dmarc policy none to reject, you can do so. So Johnny's actually done that in the background to ensure that in a minute when we send a new spoof mail, you guys will be in reject. It usually takes about 10 minutes to kind of kick in. And then we'll see from my inbox that email won't go through. So that's some nice, easy changes you can make there. Again, it means you don't have to jump in and out of DNS records the whole time, which is a really nice benefit. Same with Dkim here. If anyone's had trouble configuring Dkim, we make it a lot simpler for you. You can set one key up from here, again, using name servers, and then manage all of your selectors underneath here. So next part we're going to look at is called Bimi. Now, I'm just going to describe what Bimi actually is. So in really simple terms, this allows companies to add their brand logos into their emails. Why is that beneficial for a company? Because it means if you're targeting, your mass customers and you've got your brand logo in your email before your customers actually click into that email, that's really going to help brand recognition. It helps uplift open rates of emails too, which is a stat from Verizon. And one of the things that you need to be able to qualify for a Bimi license is you've got to have Dmarc in a policy of reject or quarantine 100%. So we've helped a lot of our big, retail customers recently configure this, like Domino's Pizza, which means in all of Domino's outgoing emails into our, end user accounts, let's say my Gmail accounts, they'll have their very well recognizable Domino's logo. That means I'm more likely to click into that email and interact with whatever promotional codes within that. So that's worth to have a think about. And again, ask the guys if you want more details on that. And we specialize providing Bimi licenses to our customer base. Now, the last thing we're going to look at is our Investigate solution, which solves a massive problem for our customers, which is whenever you make a Dmarc change, it usually takes about 24 hours to see the impact of that change. With Investigate, what we allow our customers to do is send a test email from a service, like G Suite or Office 365. Once you send that test email into here, we then analyze that email on the back end and then send our customers a report back within about 10 to 20 seconds, which, is all in real time. And this report shows them straight away whether or not that service and case has been correctly set up with SPF. Any errors will be nicely highlighted here. Information around Dmarc setup too. Also information around their Dkim setup, which usually tends to be the trickier of the two services to set up. Any errors in here will be nicely presented to you again. Again, we present information around your return DNS records, anything around threat intelligence too. So you might, be using an IP address that could be a shared one, and that could potentially end up on a spam list because any other companies may be sharing that IP, could be abusing it, and we give you information and visibility on that. And finally, a little bit of information around Bimi and where you're at with that implementation process. So our support team love working on this with customers, which basically the process they follow is they help them make DNS changes. they send a test email to here from whatever service they're changing, and then they get these reports back. They can see if there's still any potential errors to then fix. Cool. So that's kind of everything, a short demonstration around what we do. Our end goal with our customers is to get them to reject. One of the big offerings we can do, we can set this up for our customers, in like a reporting manner, which the team from Threat Protect can help with too, which means straight away from doing so, within a day, you start getting visibility of those reports and seeing what's happened on behalf of your domain. So the last thing we're going to look at now, sorry, I keep saying the last thing, is we're going to look at the threat protect.co.uk domain. Johnny switched this back to reject nicely now, which means any unauthorized sending services will now fail Dmarc validation and become blocked, therefore protecting their domain. So this is the moment of truth. It usually takes about 10 minutes to propagate this, but I think we've probably spoken for about 10 minutes now from Johnny doing that. I just need to copy and paste the original email back again, which is what I made earlier. By the way, this spoofing service that we use internally, one of our IT team literally set this up in about half an hour. I think we use a SendGrid account and an IP from that to send these emails out. So that's everything on there. Exactly the same here again. I'll hit submit. And the last test we'll do is to get Johnny to resend that same email again that he did earlier.
So I have done that actually, Harry. So you should have that in your inbox.
Perfect. So this one's just processing on our end. So this is the legitimate one from Johnny. That was the moment of truth, in case that was the spoof, but it's not. This is the legitimate one that's come through again. But as we can see here, the spoof has been blocked, as that would usually come through instantly. And there we go. That is your full run through around a spoof mail. So one last time, this is a spoof email that we sent about 20 minutes ago. Came straight through. On inbox catches it. These emails could be going out to your customers, companies in your supply chain, etc. Dmarc is the only way to block these exact domain impersonation attacks, as you can see there. It looks to be from Johnny. Whereas this is a legitimate one. So to the untrained eye, it's very tricky to distinguish that. Whereas here, our on inbox picks that up to be legitimate. So that is everything from my end. Hopefully that was clear. We're happy
So sorry, I think just an interesting point there is where the C is still amber, not green. It's not just purely green, so it still picks up that the content of the email is potentially suspicious, even though it's come from a recognized domain. It's still recognizing that the type of the nature of the email is still picking up as suspicious. So
exactly. So
it's like
you can
ongoing
see
training,
the
right?
messaging here. It's saying proceed with caution, because it's not so much this is a phishing email, but it's saying because there's urgency and money related action here, it's just giving users just that second eye to have a double scan of the email in case there's been a hijacked account or something like that. So then, they just got a second double check of it, basically. But yeah, there's the full run through. Thank you for helping with that, Johnny, with the emails. I hope that was nice and clear to show exactly what Dmarc blocks.
Thank you for watching this event. If you have any questions on anything that was covered, you can find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, or via our website, which is www.threatprotect.co.uk. Many thanks and take care.